What is the secret to unlocking your full potential? What makes your idols any different than you? How do you become the person you've always wanted to be in life? This is where you get all of your questions answered. My name is Justin Schenck, and I sit down with some of the most epic individuals who are changing the world with their actions in business and in life. We discuss how they did it, why they pushed themselves, and more importantly, how they were able to focus on continuous growth to achieve their dreams. Welcome to the Growth Now movement. Hey guys, I just wanted to take a quick second and let you know that I am helping podcasters all around the world level up their podcast, grow their audience, and learn how to monetize their show quickly. If this is something that you're interested in, go over to beginpodcastingnow.com, fill out the contact form, and we'll hop on a free 20-minute consultation call to see how I can help you do the same thing. Now, let me introduce you to our next guest. This week, I sit down with Phillip Stutts.
If a problem arises, let's figure out a solution, not blame. Once I really started listening to other people instead of talking over people, I learned and grew a lot more, and those practices really propelled me forward.
Phillip is the author of Fire Them Now. He is one of the masterminds behind the curtain of political marketing. With more than 20 years of political and marketing experience, Stutts has worked with multiple Fortune 200 companies and has over 2 decades of experience working on campaigns with billions of dollars in political ad spend and contributed to over 1,000 election victories, including hundreds of U.S. House campaigns, dozens of U.S. Senate campaigns, and even 3 presidential victories. So with that being said, Phillip is the GOAT of marketing, not only in politics, but also with businesses as well. In this episode, we not only talk about how media is viewed today, we don't only talk about Phillip's journey in business, but we also talk about what it is he's going through personally and how that's changed him as a human being. You see, he was diagnosed with a very rare esophageal disease that there's no cure for, and it's completely changed his mindset. He talks about from going just wanting to stick his head in the sand to launching a movement to find a cure for this disease in his lifetime. Phillip is somebody who's super inspiring. I really enjoyed this conversation, and he's got a really great offer for business owners and entrepreneurs at the end of it, a completely free evaluation of the marketing of your company. I'm going to fully take advantage of it. Him and I talked about it, and he said that there's definitely some improvements that I can make, so I'm excited to see how that turns out for me. If you guys like what you hear on the show, please click the subscribe button, tell a friend, let everybody know what we're doing here in the Growth Now movement. Let's grow this movement. Now, without further ado, I present to you the inspiring Phillip Stutts. Phillip, welcome to the Growth Now movement, man.
Man, I'm honored to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I think this would be a really neat conversation because, diving into your story, I'm just intrigued with a lot of it. I'm intrigued with the world you live in. I'm intrigued with what you're doing now and how you're really escalating businesses around you. And it's just a really, really kind of neat path that you're taking, right? And I listened to your show on my friend Jeremy Ryan Slate's show, and I was like, wow, man, this guy is he's willing to go deep, and I love when people go deep. So just really excited to get into it. But why don't you just introduce yourself to my audience and just kind of open up with who you are today, and then we'll kind of unpackage how you got there.
Ooh, that's a good first one. Today I am a completely different human being than I was 5 years ago. I've worked in political marketing for 20 plus years, and I'm married, and I have a little daughter, and all those nice things that everybody kind of hopes and strives for, I guess, in their own life. But I'm, one of those incredibly flawed people that was paralyzed in my life for a long time on a lot of different levels. I was diagnosed with an incurable disease in 2012, did nothing about it for years. And it really affected a lot of different parts of my life, not just my health, but my business, my personal life, and my, raising a daughter and all those types of things. And then I'd had enough, and I just said enough's enough, and I'm going to live life on my terms. And I made a change, and in a snap of a finger, I decided to make the change. And it is a work of progress every day for the rest of my life. And my wife and I joke a lot that, you had some setbacks, and I have setbacks all the time. And my wife will say to me, Yeah, it's not like you're just going to find some spot and go, all right, I'm good. I can stop growing now. That it's something I'm going to be, it's really the everybody talks about you have to have purpose in your life. And it really is the purpose of my life is to continue to strive to be a better dad, a better husband, and grow my business and, to improve my health, which is still out there. So, really the person I am today is someone that is striving to give more than I take and grow every day. And those are the drivers of my purpose right now.
For sure. I mean, there's a lot there. There was a lot in that I'd like to go back and kind of talk about a couple of different things. So
let's roll.
5-6 years ago, I mean, at this point, I can't believe, like, time flies. It's 2018. We're halfway through already. But, right. When you rewind to 2012 and before that, who were you as a person? Like, if I think about, like, you're like, I'm a completely different person. What does that mean?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, let's just take a step back to 2012. I was diagnosed with a rare esophageal disease called achalasia. Basically, the nerves and the muscles in my esophagus don't work, and they will never work the rest of my life. It's an incurable disease, and I was diagnosed in my 30s. This disease, typically, it's like 1 out of 100,000 people have it, but usually the one is in their 60s, 70s, or 80s. So it's a little bit exponential for me to have it in my 30s. And, I think when you're diagnosed at a young age, when you get to that point where you think, you're a young guy, you go, hey, I'm going to live to my 80s. I'm going to, you just don't, your mortality never comes into play, and mortality came into play. And I think, some people have different reactions. My reaction was, how can I stick my head in the sand and not do anything about this and wallow in it? And what it really did was I was being treated at not Johns Hopkins, but at, the Mayo Clinic. And you think to yourself, well, I'm being treated at the Mayo Clinic. There's nothing better than that. And the Mayo Clinic is a great hospital. But basically, they told me your disease, quote unquote, is what it is. Here are these medications that have long-term dementia consequences, but you need to take it so, you don't get esophageal cancer. And, I also, in that period of time, I had 3 major surgeries on my esophagus, 15 minor procedures. The last major surgery I had, they literally straightened my esophagus. They pulled it down into my stomach. They cut a quarter of my stomach out. They wrapped it around my esophagus. They stapled it all together. And that wrap will come undone one day. And the Mayo Clinic doctors basically said, you're going to be on a feeding tube at some point in the next 10 to 15 years. And it really, I had created a startup company in 2015, and we grew 500% very quickly. It's a marketing agency, a political and corporate marketing agency. And I was making all these great changes, but the doctor laying this out, this feeding tube, either in my 40s or 50s, like blew me out of the water. And again, that sort of mortality. And then you realize I innovate in all aspects of my life, but here I am sitting, with my head in the sand, not doing anything about my health. And so I decided in that moment, the doctor's office, I was going to disrupt the disease. And and I ended up writing the book, Fire Them Now, was a reaction to that, because I kept seeing business owners that were completely paralyzed by the disruption in the marketing community and really in the economy as a bigger perspective. But, and so I didn't know how I was going to disrupt the disease. I attend a couple months later the Abundance 360 conference, which is a Peter Diamandis and conference in LA. He jumps on stage, and the first thing he says is, "Everybody, pull out your notebooks. I want you to accomplish something that people say is impossible, and I want you to write your notebook down. I want you to figure out what your moonshot in life is going to be." And I want you to go make the impossible possible. And I went to this conference thinking I was going to grow my marketing agency even more. That I was going to do more and more work. That was incredible. And, I'm really passionate about what I do, and that because I love it so much. I don't love having to deal with my health, right?
Yeah.
So, but I looked at my notebook and I wrote in there, I will find a way to have this disease cured in 5 years. And that was my moonshot.
That's amazing.
And then Diamandis demands that everybody write 3 things down that you will do immediately to put you in forward momentum towards that moonshot. And one of the things that I wrote down was, I'll write an article and lay it out so I'm accountable. And I wrote this article, Inc. Picked it up, and it led this circuitous long route where I am now have a team of doctors around me. This fall, I will start a first ever one-man clinical trial where they'll insert stem cells into my esophagus to try to regenerate the nerves and the muscles. No one's ever done this. I'm the one man in the one man clinical trial.
What are your thoughts on that? Like being the first one? That's kind of
the doctor said, I said, well, what are the percentages this thing would work? And they said, we don't know. And I'm like, well, what are the percentages this thing won't work? And they go, well, we don't know. And there's probably a good chance it won't work. And that's cool. I'll go to plan B after that. But I just said, I'm not going to sit around and let this disruption take over my life. I was facing disruption and I was doing nothing about it. And when I wrote the book, I looked back and I said, it's just really interesting. There are so many business owners right now that are facing a disruptive economy, a disrupting marketing environment, and they're doing nothing. And I get it because it's not fun. It's scary and it brings a lot of uncertainty into your life.
Yeah.
And so that's, really, I just said, I have to have the growth mindset in all aspects of my life. And really that's what propelled me forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I love the fact that you used media to start this movement and this idea that we're going to cure a disease that they claim is incurable. Because I think sometimes we look at the media and in this day and age, and say the media is evil. Right. And so everything that's kind of happening with that. But you took
fake news, right?
Yeah, fake news. Exactly. Right. So that's where this all stems from. Right. So, we look at it from that standpoint, but you were able to use it and really kind of use it as a launching pad to this great idea. This is going to kind of shift the direction a little bit of this conversation, but what makes you like the media guy? Like you've unpacked a lot of this. Like if I heard correctly, you were part of like 3 presidential campaigns that you won. Right. And all these other things. So like, what is it about you that sets you apart? Do you think it's like you have a gift or you just figured it out?
No, look, no, I don't, it's not a gift. It's experience. Right. And when we took political strategies and principles and we reverse engineered them and applied them to businesses, we had explosive growth for those companies. And the reason being is that, listen, everybody runs towards trends. And so what I think I have a knack of doing is seeing what isn't the trend, but could be in the future. And what I have identified is one of the key aspects that we understand fundamentally in politics, businesses have moved away from in the trend of let's go digital. Listen, I have a digital marketing agency. I get how important digital marketing is. But there's so many businesses that's what they lead with. What's our digital marketing strategy? And it's not that. And in politics, the reason we fundamentally understand everything in those marketing principles and strategies is because we have to think about what the voter cares about first. That's all we care about. How are we interacting with the voter? What do they care about? And does the politician that we work with match up along those values? And then how do we communicate that? And there are a lot of businesses, and hopefully business owners that are listening to this think about this, that they love their product or their service. And they should, because they started the company or they're marketing for an agency or a company that they love their product or service. But what do the customers feel about that product or service? And they don't ask that question. And so what we did was we started, and I'll give you some interesting statistics. There is a business statistic out there that in this day and age, it takes about 16 communications or touches from a marketer to get a consumer to convert, and make a sale. And in politics, it can be between 7 and 8. Why? Why is that? Because we are constantly talking to them at a personal level. We're building relationships with them. Sally Hogsett's great author. She did a 10-year study with business owners that if you talk in an authentic manner to build personal relationships, you increase the ROI of your company by 200%. And I'm reading all these things and studying them and going, of course, that makes total sense because that's all we think about in politics is the voter.
Yeah.
And so what I tell businesses more than anything else is you have to have a strategy that leads with personal relationships first. And then you supplement that with traditional or digital marketing or whatever you want to do. But it's got to lead with a personal relationship. I'll give you one example, and that is Tony Hsieh at Zappos, one of the great CEOs, business owners that has ever understood the personal relationship.
Yeah.
So Zappos has call centers. The average call center in this country for any business has a turnover rate of 150%. Tony Hsieh has a turnover rate of 9%. And they have a 75% repeat customer based on their call centers. Why? Because Tony Hsieh's mission with the call center is not to make a sale. It is not to how quickly can we get off this call so we can answer other calls. It is not how do we automate this call. It is to build a relationship with the caller, not make the sale, build a relationship with the caller, understand who they are, get to know them, build a relationship, build trust. That is why that is a $1 billion company. That is why Amazon bought Zappos, and they weren't able to change the culture. That was part of the condition for the sale. Because Tony Hsieh fundamentally gets that it is about a personal relationship with the customer, and that's all that matters. And if you can then run your marketing efforts around that, you are going to have explosive growth as a business owner.
For sure. And I love his book. He's actually a guy that I keep getting closer and closer to getting him on the show. And whenever he's brought up on my show, I send it out into the universe. Just trying to get Tony Hsieh on the show. But yeah, so that book was incredible. It really kind of changed my mindset as far as like, how do you approach everything in your life? And I think obviously authenticity, like you had mentioned before, is total key. Now there is a word you keep bringing up, and I happen to love the word, and I wear it on my wrist, which is growth. And you talk about growth in all areas of your life. And I think that's the piece that everybody's missing. We focus so hard on, like you said, on your business or like, oh, okay, I need those 6-packs, so I'm going to grow in my workouts and whatever else, the case may be, right? But we never look at it as a whole thing. And that's really what this disease kind of did for you. It made you take a step back and be like, I need to grow in all areas of my life, not just put my head in the sand and focus on one thing, because that's not a full life. So that moment where you're like, I need to now invest in all areas of my life, was it overwhelming? Were you like, now I have all these different layers that I have to focus on 24/7. How do you handle that?
Yeah, well, one thing, that's a good point, because not everybody's wired. We're all wired differently. I am diagnosed ADD. I probably was one of the first ADD diagnosed. I was in the first generation of ADD diagnosed. It was even before ADHD, right? We were just ADD, and I was told that I was dumb, and when I was in junior high and high school, I was in we had 3 levels of classes in junior high and high school. There were basic, regular, and advanced. I was always I was put in basic classes. I was told I wasn't smart, and really, what I've understood in my life is that by having ADD, it's actually not a curse. It is a very big gift. One of the things I can do really well is I can juggle about 27 things at once, and it's really not a big deal. In fact, I've forced myself into aligning my schedule and my time in a way the way that my brain works best. And when I need to focus on one thing, I know when my brain can handle that. And then when I want to handle the 27 other things, I know what time of day I need to do that. Yeah. But the point is that, first of all, it's very frustrating. There's no way that I can do well in all things at all time. Every time that I focus on my health, or my business and my health, my personal life, tends to stall. And then, my accountability partner, which is my wife, tends to bring it up. And then when I put all of my focus into my marriage or being a good dad and into my business, I realize I start eating poorly again the way I shouldn't be eating. Like I understand this, and it feels like a whack-a-mole in a way, but I always have something to strive for too, which is really cool. And when I wake up in the morning, what is it, Rob Dyrdek? Dyrdek. He said, and I do this. He was on a recent podcast, and he said he sort of, at the end of the day, he grades how excited he was when he wakes up in the morning. And I give myself grades at the end of each day on all of these things, right? And then I can see at the end of the week, what did I put more of my energy into and the other, and I have to be really honest with myself. And part of that is, I get up every morning really stoked and very excited to get to work on something, because it's always something different, and there's 27 different things that I got to focus on. And really that's just how I handle it personally, but everybody's different. So I can't really tell you how someone listening to this, it would be helpful for them. But for me, I have a grading structure. I have a lot of accountability, and I can handle it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And actually it's funny because somebody had mentioned earlier on in my podcast something where he has like the 7 main focuses of his life. And it's like, you know, his self, his family, his business, his significant other, etc. And he goes, and at the end of every day, and then again at the end of every month, I kind of gauge what I'm focused on in the right way. And if where I dropped off, I then refocus purpose on that the next day or the next month, because you really can't do everything at once. And so I live in the world of like, whatever I'm doing, I'm at 100% in at that moment. Right. So as somebody with ADD, how hard is this conversation for you? As like life is happening around you, but here we are 22 minutes into our conversation. What's that like? Just out of curiosity.
Actually, it's very interesting. I've been fortunate enough. I've done about 200 media appearances in the last 5 years that had nothing to do with this topic. I've gone on Fox and MSNBC and CNN, talked about politics. And so in a way, I know how to get really focused. That muscle of coming on and doing interviews is very natural for me right now. So this is great. I actually really like this. You know, the hardest part about this is when I'm done and I walk out of my office and there's nobody there, and it's like, all right, I'm fired up. I've been talking for an hour. Now it's gone. Right. Yep. And, that was an adjustment that I had to figure out as well. Like, and now it gives me a little bit of empathy with like what athletes feel, you know, like what you know, someone feels that's on stage and then goes off and everything quiets down. And that's hard for some people. And I had to learn that skill as well.
Yeah, for sure. Like when I speak on a stage and then I walk off, like I have to be alone for a little bit because I can't, because you have to unwind that energy, whatever was happening in that moment, you have to unwind from it because it's just a different feeling. And I totally get it. Like when I interviewed Ed Milet and like I went out and met a friend afterwards. I'm like, yo, I just interviewed Ed Milet. And he goes, who's that? I'm like, what do you mean who's that? It's like the coolest guy ever. Like it was crazy. And there was just I need your enthusiasm back. Just please like drive it home. Right. That's so funny. But you're now on this journey of trying to cure this disease. You're still running a large company. You're still married. You still have the daughter, and you're really kind of figuring it out, right? And you're still figuring it out as you go, which I really like that. I think that we're all on this journey of just trying to figure it out. So what's the next move for you? Like other than, you know, getting that surgery and so on and so forth, but what's next for you to really kind of make this the perfect life?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, I have moved forward with so many, you know, 10x goals over the last few years, that I decided, once the book came out that I wanted to go back and run my companies and really focus on growing them in an optimizing way, where we look inward more than we look outward, that it's less, how can we get new clients, then how do we take care of our old clients? How do we make them love us even more? How can we prove to our worth to them even more? And I'm excited to kind of go back. And one of the things that I like to do is I live on the beach in Florida, and I'll get up at like 4 a.m. and I listen to podcasts of very interesting guests on different marketing podcasts and growth podcasts, things like that. And I'll just take notes while I'm on the beach, and then I'll go implement them on a daily basis. And my thing is, if I can take 1 or 2 ideas a week for my business that I get through, you know, listening to podcasts or a technique called thinking time that I can talk about a little later. If I can take 1 or 2 ideas and implement that into my business, and you do that over a 5-year period, you're talking about 1,500 ideas that you're tweaking, 1,500 tweaks to your business. How much better can your business be if you're constantly thinking of, hey, let's tweak this. Let's communicate differently this way. Let's take care of people this way. Let's offer more value this way. Let's change our hiring process. Let's put different steps in that process. How do we get better prospects? Like just everything in every part of the business. And I really have missed that because for the last year I wrote the book and we were creating, a lot of the content around the book. And so, now I'm excited to kind of go back and jump back into the business.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love that idea, just taking time for yourself to improve on everything. So you had mentioned a technique. What was it called?
Thinking time. So Keith Cunningham, he's an entrepreneur out of Austin, Texas. He's been a mentor to me, and he taught me this incredible skill called thinking time, which is basically, it's very hard to do. It sounds very easy, but trust me, mentally, people in this day and age cannot do this very often or consistently.
Yeah.
But if you want explosive growth and you want to do something that is you've never thought possible, you do this exercise. And the exercise is you take 35 minutes, you put down your phone, you put a stopwatch on, you write one question on a notebook that you must handwrite. And then you start answering that question for 35 uninterrupted minutes. You put yourself, in a chair, or you could put yourself in a closet. Like, you can't be interrupted. Like, you can't look up and go, oh, look, it's sunny out that side. Like, you just got to go. And the pattern of it is amazing, because the first third that you're working, it's all the things on the top of your head. And then the second third, a couple new ideas come in, but you hit a wall. And then out of nowhere, and this happens almost every time I do it, the final third of the writing, the last 10 to 12 minutes, there is all of these new ideas that you never dreamed possible come out of your brain. And everybody that has done this tells me the exact same thing. It happens in this sort of pattern every time. And so if I have a problem in my company and I need to figure out a solution, or I am trying to grow and I'm trying to expand what I'm doing, I've done it in my personal life, I've done it in my business, I've done it in my health. This is one of the most successful little tricks of the trade, growth hacks that I've ever utilized. And the hard part is people don't have the attention span to write for 35 straight minutes, not on a computer, but with a pen and a pad. Yeah. And so anyway, that's the little hack.
Yeah. I'm going to try it, because I think that's obviously incredible, especially if that's the trend for pretty much everybody who does it. Like, I definitely want to try it. I'm going to have a hard time with the 35 minutes. Like, cause you're like, oh, it's only 35 minutes. It's a long time when there's silence and you're just staring at a piece of paper. And I think I would get frustrated in that wall that you hit. And I'd be like, this is pointless. So what do you do when this is for my own curiosity, what do you do when you hit that wall in this thinking process? How do you push through? Is it just organic? It just happens, or?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Everybody's different. For me, it's just a resilience, like, I know, don't stop, don't quit, can't quit. It's kind of what goes to my head. What else? And then eventually something hits and I'll start writing. And then all of a sudden, as I'm writing, all these other things start hitting my brain that I hadn't thought about before.
Sure.
And I will tell you, we had $1 million idea out of my business through a thinking time.
That's awesome. That's really, really cool. Very, very cool. So what is, like, I want to go back really quick to like a mindset that you're in currently, which is really kind of, we're talking about the growth in all areas of your life. When you made that shift, what happened? Because when I made that shift in my life where I was like, I'm just going to focus on growth. I don't really care about, like, yes, I have an end goal, but it's not my focus. My focus is just that one step forward every single day. So, and that's when I started to see growth. So what was the big shift for you? Like, what did you notice in your life changing the most?
Passion. I think part of me modeled poor behavior my whole life, and there was probably some narcissistic tendencies, and it was all about me, and so if things didn't go right, I'd blame everybody. And once I got out of that story, once I get into the story that look, if a problem arises, let's figure out a solution, not blame. Once I really started listening to other people instead of talking over people, I learned and grew a lot more. And those practices really propelled me forward. It is something it's just not something that's natural to me. And so I've had to learn that behavior. And, to learn this behavior in your early 40s, I always say it sort of sucks that I had to wait to my 40s to propel myself in a way that was more thoughtful, more empathetic, more vulnerable, and willing to trust and listen and be there for other people. And then I say, I'm really blessed that this happened to me in my 40s, because I don't know if I would have been married much longer. I don't know if I would have had multiple successful companies, or I would have taken this moonshot with my health. I think I would have been a broken man and had to learn much harder lessons in a few years in my late 40s, and maybe it would have been too late. And the other thing is, and I see this so many times by people in their 60s and 70s, they understand the regrets they have in their life at that point, because mortality is looking them in the eye.
Yeah.
And I don't want to wake up in my 60s or 70s and say, I wish I would have done this differently. I wish I would have acted differently. I wish I'd have had a different life. I get that chance to do it halfway through, so I feel blessed more than anything.
For sure, yeah. And that's, I mean, I really do believe in the saying of, life happens for you, not to you. And yours came at a really tough moment, right? That realization came when you're like, I'm now, 10 years I'll be in a feeding tube, possibly. Obviously, I believe that this disease will be curable in your lifetime.
Sure.
But you had to face that in order to make this switch, right? Do you think that if this disease didn't happen, your life would be completely different?
Oh, I'm grateful every day. If you went back to 2012 and said, hey, you don't have to have this disease and we'll take it back and you can have none of these issues, none of these problems. You'll never have to worry about eating food again, because every meal I have to think about how I'm going to eat this and how it's going to get down into my stomach. And if you gave me that choice to go back and change it, I would not change it. The disease is a blessing, not a curse. Absolutely.
Wow. I love that. I absolutely love that mindset. Because of this podcast, I get the opportunity to talk to a lot of successful people like you, however you define success, whether, money, health, whatever the case may be, right? So my question for you is, what's your definition of success? And what are 3 things you do every single day to ensure that success?
Well, I mean, I think we've hit on it. It's growth.
Yeah.
And then I think, it's probably accountability. Without accountability, I don't think you have the will to continue to grow. And I put accountability around me, whether it be, as a father or in my personal life, in my business, and in my health. I have accountability partners in everything I do. And they will be honest with me and tell me I'm an idiot. And so I'm good with that. And I think vulnerability, empathy, I think the ability to listen, as we talked about, is really, really important. And more than anything, I think it's just being able to give, to others and not think of yourself in everything, every moment of your life. And, I definitely fail in all 3 of these, a lot, but you know what? I'm never going to stop working towards it.
Yeah. I love how honest you are about that stuff. Like, how you're like, here's my intentions, but I fail at them, and that's okay. Right. And I think that's huge. I think that's huge. Like, my intention is always to work out every day. I fail 3 out of 7 days a week usually, and so on and so forth, right? And so, like, I think I like how real you are about the things you're going through and how it is a struggle to adjust who you are as a person. It's a constant struggle after that. Like, and I relate to a lot of what you're saying. Like, if you and I were having a conversation, like, off the record, I would, and it would be about a 2-way conversation instead of what's your story. Like, I would say I can totally relate to a lot of what you're saying. So I appreciate you being open and honest and sharing all of that stuff. Right. So I'm not obsessed with the idea, but I really love the idea of media and getting published and talked about. And the reason I love it so much is because I was listed as a top 8 podcast to follow by Inc.com. And I 4X'd my audience overnight. And that was a massive shift for my podcast. Mm-hmm. That was a massive shift for my brand and for my podcast production company. And when I got in there, I was like, wow, this is amazing. Right. But I think sometimes I miss the boat. Like, I don't know really, how to get more into the media. I was lucky enough that Inc. came to me. Like, I didn't go searching for it. And I was lucky in a lot of those things. Is there anything that you or your company can do for people like myself to get us engaged, to find out what we're working on? How do we find out what's happening with our businesses or our company or ourselves in the media space?
Yeah. So 2 things. One is, and I wrote this in the book, but I think there's a strategy that I write about in politics that we utilize in every single political campaign. And when businesses have utilized this exact strategy, they've had massive growth. And that is the strategy of going negative. Now, we do it very differently in politics, right? Everybody knows what negative ads are in politics, and everybody raises their hand when I ask, do you hate them? They all hate them, but we do them because they work. Yeah. And what I describe in the book is how businesses have used sort of comparison advertising to never offend anyone, not even potentially their competition, but they don't offend the marketplace. They use humor in the way they do it. I lay out a bunch of examples, and the businesses that have followed that strategy, because everybody's so scared to offend in this day and age, that if you can figure out this one little strategy, your business will 10x unbelievably fast. And I lay out the companies that have done it with massive transformative purpose. And so that is one. And then the other is, look, the one thing I saw, I interviewed 100 CEOs for the book.
Wow.
And every one of them came back with the same frustration in the digital marketing space. They said they had hired a marketing agency. The marketing agency did all these things to, put their needs first before the company's needs that had hired them. They made all this money. The business did not see the ROI they expected. If the business owners listening to this right now, they're probably nodding their head. They're like, yes, yes, yes. And so what I decided to do was write a book that basically said, here is how you win the game if you're a business owner and you want to win in the digital marketing space. And we lay out all of these political principles and sort of reverse engineer them on how they work for businesses. And then I said, well, what else can I do? What else is out there right now that I could, give value to the reader, and I'll do it for your listeners. But we created what's a sort of a digital marketing scoring system. And basically you go to phillipstutts.com/audit, and it takes like 3 minutes, and you write in all your publicly available digital marketing footprint, right? Your social handles, your email, all these different things. They're all publicly available. We do not take anything that's private. And then my team spends 5 to 10 business days evaluating everything you do. And we put a report together, and then we will do a conference call on that report, and we will give you 3 things that we think you're doing really well or that you can improve. And we'll lay out how much we believe, based on the work we've done with other businesses, how we can how much the improvement on the return on investment if you were to make a couple of tweaks in your business on the marketing front. And we do this complimentary. And
That's
so
awesome.
If your listeners are out there and they're like, yeah, I don't know what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, and you want to get a better understanding of that, then go take the audit and we'll be able to do it for you, and it's complimentary.
That's awesome. And we'll link that up right in the show notes so you guys can just click it, fill it out. You said it's pretty quick to fill out?
Takes 3 minutes.
That's awesome. That's incredible. So that's definitely something I'm going to take advantage of, just because I'm curious as far as like what else can I do, especially like when I think of like the podcast production that I do, like what else can I do to get that out, and so on and so forth. But first of all, I want to thank you for your time. Like this conversation was incredible. I wrap up every single episode with 5 rapid fire questions. Some are fun, some are serious. But I ask you this: answer within 1 word or 1 sentence. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. The first one is, what's your favorite smell?
Bacon.
Nice. Nobody's ever said bacon. I've done over 100 interviews and nobody's ever said bacon. That's really strange because that's a great smell.
Or coffee.
People have said coffee. Coffee is a delicious smell, but I usually get like vanilla or something like that. So I appreciate the new answer, which was a good one. What's the most embarrassing song you have downloaded on your phone?
Oh, God, that's a good one. What's Left of Me by Nick Lachey.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
I think Nick Lachey is actually like a really good dude. I don't know him, but I mean, he seems like a good dude.
He does seem like a good dude. Him alone, him and Jessica Simpson on that show, they made Miller Lite the most popular light beer. It's completely because of that show.
I know. Totally.
Yes, I watched the show. Go
ahead
and judge.
But that was like 10 years ago. So.
Yeah, it was. So if you could have dinner with one person, living or dead, who would it be?
Oh, absolutely. It'd be Peter Thiel.
Interesting. That's a good answer. That's a really good answer.
I've always been fascinated. Ryan Holiday has a great book right now called Conspiracy that I'm almost done with. And I just find the guy totally interesting. I would love to spend an evening and learn more from that guy.
Yeah, and just pick his brain. That's awesome. At the end of your life, if you can only be remembered for 1 sentence, what would that be?
He gave more than he took.
Love that. And obviously this podcast is called The Growth Now Movement, so I wrap up every single episode with this one question, and that is, in your life, what has been your biggest moment of growth?
So I would tell you it was like January 14th, 2015, and I was I went to Business Mastery, Tony Robbins' Business Mastery, and out of that, I created my marketing agency, and we started with one employee, and we're at over 20 now, and we've grown 500%. And really, I walked out of that 5-day seminar, and I think I had something like 137 things I had to accomplish immediately. And I think I did it all in a month, and
wow.
It really propelled our growth forward. And I just Tony really was the one that knocked a lot of sense into me about our life is about more than ourselves. And I'm eternally grateful. And I acknowledge him in my book for that as well.
That's awesome. Dude, thank you so much for taking the time out. And I just want to acknowledge you for truly being a man of action. Like when I think of you, I think of the word action for some reason, because everything that you've set out to do, you've done. And it's by taking massive action in every single thing that you do. And that's a huge takeaway for me, just not allowing circumstances to stop you and 137 things in a month, which is mind blowing. I mean, that alone is like the perfect example of you take action and you get stuff done. So I just want to thank you so much for sharing your story and being you. And I just really appreciate this, man. And I'd love to have a conversation again after this thing and see how it went.
And look, I appreciate what you're doing, because you're helping people, your audience learns and gets better in life, and you're giving more than you're taking, definitely. And if I can ever be of service to you in any way, please ask.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, take care.
Thank you guys so much for being a part of the Growth Now movement. This is how you can really help me out. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please share it out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that fun stuff. And let's grow this movement to epic heights. And it's all going to be because of you guys. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.